Hello, I'm Ian Collins and welcome to the Express Debate. Now, you haven't got to be a student of politics to notice that the European Union is currently dominating the news agenda. Despite the complexities of all manner of treaties and directives, the overarching issue here is actually rather simple. Is the United Kingdom better off in Europe or out of it? With me to discuss this is the UKIP MEP Gerard Batten and Peter Wilding, founder and director of British Influence. Gerard, if we start with you, what are your main reasons, if you had to boil it down, for not wanting to be in the European Union?
Good, I'm glad you said the European Union, Ian, and not Europe, because no one was suggesting we should divorce ourselves from the continent, marvellous as it is. No, it's about the European Union, and really it comes down to one issue, which is about sovereignty. Do we govern ourselves through our own elected representatives in Parliament, or are we governed from somewhere else? And I would say that the European Union is undemocratic and indeed anti-democratic, and of course that's the biggest issue for me. But then you've got the cost of the whole thing, which is enormous, and in actual fact is an impediment on the economy.
And Peter, what about that? I mean, these arguments seem very real. It's expensive, we know that. I don't think anybody disputes that. It's also, in many people's books, pretty undemocratic. Most Brits never had a vote on where we are today.
That's right, and of course if they vote for a Conservative government next year, they will get that vote. So it's not a question of denying people their democracy, because essentially they have a choice at every general election to vote for one party or another. The point is, all the three main parties want to stay in Europe. In fact, they want to do more than stay in. They want to change it. They want to lead it. The problem is they're not getting a hearing because the media is so hostile to the simple fact that Britain is one of the big three in this continent.
Of course, all this is complete baloney. We have less influence inside the European Union. We no longer control our trade policy. We've given up control of most of our domestic policies now and a whole raft of other things. So we're actually becoming powerless inside the European Union.
The single market was agreed by Margaret Thatcher, and it came into force on the 1st of January 1993. It's added billions to the gross national product of this country. It's creating jobs. We are one of the most successful traders in Europe and the world.
So you think financially we get more out of it than we put in?
Certainly. And it's not just, don't take my point of view for this. Consider small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large businesses, all agree with that. But the second great thing is that there is peace in Europe now. So we have prosperity through the common market and peace through the fact that the whole of Europe is now one.
Just that point of cost, Gerard Batten, what is it that UKIP say it costs a day to be in Europe?
£55 million.
In actual fact, if you look at the gross contributions to the budget and you add on the other additional things that we pay into, you arrive at a figure of about £20 billion a year, which is about 55 million per day, which is the gross cost. And then you've got the rebates, But that actually, I think it's a mistake for us to concentrate on that, because I think what you have to look at is the indirect costs on the economy through the common agricultural policy, through over-regulation on business.
So you're saying it could be more than that?
Well,
you think we get that back, though, Peter?
I mean,
because this is where it all rests.
I'm really pleased he said that, because you will not hear Nigel Farage say that. He will bang on about this big 55 million quid a day. It's not.
So just tell us then, just because we can get bogged down with figures on either side of this and they can be counted and then counted again. Just explain, if you would, Peter, what would happen if we pulled out of the European Union? What then happens? What happens to the United Kingdom? Do we just go backwards? Do we become poorer? What's the fundamental problem?
It's a great question. It's a question UKIP have not answered, because what out means is still unknown. But the fact is, the real story about this is that if we use the Norway option, Norway is in the single market but doesn't have any say in the laws. In that case, the rules will still be made in Brussels, and we will have to, like the Norwegians say, we'll have to take them. It's the opposite of sovereignty. It is actually regulation without representation.
If we leave the European Union, of course, we have a massive trade deficit with the European Union. They sell us far more than we sell them. And so they are not going to stop trading with us. And indeed, they wouldn't want to, and they couldn't, because the rules that govern this are World Trade Organization rules. We should just leave and say, thank you very much, it was a bad experiment. We are going to continue to trade with you. We do want friendly relationships relationships with you. We're not paying you any more money. Now, you say, oh, well, we'd have to obey EU laws. Well, yes, but if you export to America or Singapore or China or anywhere else, you have to comply with their rules when you're trying to export goods to them. That happens, that's one of the things you do when you export goods. What happens in the UK economy is that legislation that comes out affects 100% of businesses, whereas only about 13% of the economy is concerned with exporting to the EU. So instead of saddling 100% of businesses with some of this all of this regulation, we'd only require the businesses that are actually interested in exporting to Europe. You don't need to be part of this political organisation in order to trade.
Trade is always about politics. You can't divorce trade. People make rules. Britain is a Rolls-Royce diplomatic machine. It creates alliances to achieve its objectives. Without Europe, we wouldn't have the influence. We wouldn't be able to create alliances to achieve our aims. By pulling out, you're basically saying, stop the world, I want to get off. Stopping our...
I mean, is there anything wrong, Gerard, with being part of an alliance where there are agreements, as Peter says? And is there a danger that UKIP are seen as dinosaurs that don't want to progress through the 21st century, where clearly things, if you were planning planet Earth from day one, by the time you got to this point, there would be different alliances and changes.
There's nothing wrong with making alliances, because that's called diplomacy. This is what we've been doing for hundreds of years.
But if you have alliances, you've got to have some kind of rules and regulations. They've got to be binding at some level.
What you don't do is to give away your position before you've started, because they make the laws and we have to abide by them. So that means we cannot just do what is in the national interest. We have to get other people who decide to agree with us, and it may not be in their national interest.
Okay, so why is that not? Why is what Gerard's just said not right, Peter?
Look, Germany, Italy, Spain, Denmark, Sweden, Poland, they've all said we want Britain not only to stay in Europe, but to lead in Europe. And I think this must be the biggest shooting yourself in the foot exercise in British history, where we have groups of powerful countries saying, Britain, you're a great power, we want you to lead in this, and actually the single market is there, that's yours.
You know, we've got to decide on this, but I would like to see Britain out of the European Union, a free, independent, democratic nation, trading with its neighbours in a friendly fashion, and I'd like them to take the hint and do something similar themselves, but that's up to them.
Gentlemen, thank you. That's it for this Express debate. Join us on the next one. Goodbye.